Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into acute peritonitis, and we're going to transform those dense clinical textbooks into a gripping, high-stakes roadmap for your wards. If you've ever stood at the bedside of a patient in agonizing pain, knowing that the clock is ticking, well, this breakdown is absolutely for you.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Defining the acute abdomen. 2. Etiology, causes of peritonitis. 3. Pathophysiology. 4. Clinical signs. 5. Imaging. And finally 6. Surgical management. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, defining the acute abdomen.
So an acute abdomen is kind of this broad umbrella term. By definition, it refers to the sudden onset of non-traumatic abdominal pain that's been present for a maximum of 5 days. Now, this is a seriously tricky presentation because the severity ranges so vastly. It can be something completely self-limiting or it can be immediately life-threatening. But as we know from clinical experience, the mildest abdominal pain can sometimes herald an urgently correctable lesion. You just cannot afford to let your guard down.
And honestly, the stakes couldn't be higher here. Acute abdominal pain accounts for roughly 5 to 10% of all emergency department visits. But here's the real kicker. The need for emergency general surgery in these patients is an independent risk factor for post-operative complications and death. That means a timely, precise diagnosis is absolutely essential to save lives. You are literally racing against the biological clock.
Moving right along to Section 2, etiology, looking at the causes of peritonitis.
When we look at the primary culprits that actually plunge a patient into peritonitis, we routinely see things like acute appendicitis, bowel obstruction, perforated peptic ulcers, typhoid ileal perforations, and acute cholecystitis. Whether it's a perforated viscus spilling its contents into the sterile cavity or a severely inflamed appendix, identifying the exact underlying etiology is your very first step in solving this puzzle and planning your source control.
If you look at the real-world data from pooled prevalence studies, acute appendicitis is the absolute heavyweight here, making up over 42% of surgical acute abdomen cases. That's huge. This is followed closely by bowel obstruction at nearly 36% and perforated peptic ulcers at about 4.5%. Recognizing these statistics is absolutely crucial because it lets you play the probabilities right from the triage desk, guiding your initial clinical suspicions from minute 1.
Okay, Section 3, pathophysiology. Let's talk about the parietal peritoneum.
Think about the cellular fury happening under the surface. When a viscus perforates, it suddenly dumps irritants right into the sterile peritoneal cavity, and that triggers an intense inflammatory cascade. The parietal peritoneum quickly becomes inflamed. Now, because the parietal peritoneum is supplied by somatic nerves, the patient's brain can pinpoint exactly where the damage is happening. As a result, they experience this steady, highly localized, and aching pain right over the inflamed area.
Now, the crucial point here is that the intensity of this pain depends heavily on the rate and type of material causing the irritation. A sudden release of a small quantity of sterile acid gastric juice, say from a perforated ulcer, that instantly causes severe, agonizing pain. It's totally explosive. On the flip side, bacterial contamination, like from feces, might be dangerously subtle. It frequently causes low-intensity pain early on, which builds insidiously as the bacteria multiply and elaborate irritating substances over time. Let's translate this to the bedside. Section 4. Clinical signs of peritonitis.
So how does all this microscopic inflammation look in the patient right in front of you? Well, the classic presentation is pretty stark. The patient will often lie completely still, just avoiding all motion because any tension accentuates that somatic pain. You'll observe board-like abdominal rigidity and involuntary muscular guarding. As it progresses, you'll see prostration and shock. And perhaps most ominously, in cases of severe chemical peritonitis, you're going to encounter the truly silent abdomen, which is a terrifying absence of normal bowel sounds.
Now, I want to share an amazing insider tip straight from Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine. They literally note, eliciting rebound tenderness by sudden release of a deeply palpating hand in a patient with suspected peritonitis is cruel and unnecessary. Examining a patient brusquely like this is a massive pitfall. Not only does it cause immense suffering, but it also induces protective muscle spasms, and that completely ruins accurate assessment for the next doctor who needs to examine them. Just don't do it.
So what's the alternative? Instead of that cruel, sudden release, we can just use gentle percussion on the abdomen. That effectively acts as rebound tenderness on a miniature scale. Or, alternatively, just ask the patient to cough. This simple cough test elicits true rebound tenderness without you ever needing to place a heavy hand on their abdomen, gathering the exact same diagnostic info in a much more humane and precise way.
But you've always got to beware the hidden appendix. As the Oxford Handbook points out, inflammation in a retrocecal or retroperitoneal appendix, which is about 2.5% of cases, might not present with those classic interior signs. Instead, it might only show increased tenderness on the right during a pelvic or rectal examination. Always remember that an overlying viscus can totally mask these peritoneal signs. That is exactly why a careful pelvic and rectal exam is absolutely mandatory in every single patient with abdominal pain.
When things get tricky, we turn to Section 5, Imaging, Seeing the Invisible.
When the physical exam leaves questions, or when you need to plan for surgery, we turn to imaging. Let's compare our heavy hitters. An erect chest X-ray is fantastic because it rapidly identifies free air under the diaphragm, the classic hallmark of a perforated viscus. But when things are complex, a CT scan with contrast is truly unparalleled. It lets you detect hidden intra-abdominal collections, provides excellent retroperitoneal visibility, and is often your key to a precise, definitive diagnosis.
And we definitely can't overlook ultrasound. It remains a highly preferred, radiation-free tool in modern practice, especially for diagnosing acute biliary disease, appendicitis, and gynecological emergencies, but you have to keep its limitations in mind. Ultrasound is heavily limited by operator variable sensitivity, meaning if the technician or clinician isn't highly skilled, crucial findings can absolutely be missed.
Finally, let's reverse engineer why all this matters. Section 6, Surgical Management and Resuscitation.
This timeline right here is literally your life-saving sequence. Step 1. Manage shock immediately with ABC resuscitation. Step 2. Counter those massive third-space fluid shifts by setting up an IV with 0.9% saline and push broad-spectrum antibiotics to fight the systemic infection. Step 3. Move swiftly to a prompt laparotomy. You simply cannot delay source control.
Now, while you're prepping for that laparotomy, you must meticulously follow your preoperative checklist. Ensure the patient is nil by mouth. Get a cross-match or group and save. Draw blood cultures before your antibiotics hit the bloodstream. Insert a urinary catheter to monitor target organ perfusion, aiming for an output of greater than 30 milliliters per hour. And please, importantly, give adequate analgesia, like morphine. Do not withhold analgesia out of some outdated fear of masking symptoms. It is not contraindicated, and it's your duty to relieve their pain while prepping them for surgery.
And this brings us to the ultimate surgical goal, source control. Once inside the abdomen, the surgeon might perform a primary anastomosis, or if conditions are poor, a Hartmann's procedure, which involves a temporary colostomy to safely divert bowel contents. If there's dead or ischemic bowel, it has got to be removed. The entire objective here is to stop bacterial translocation across the gut wall and halt the progression from a systemic inflammatory response syndrome straight into deadly multi-organ dysfunction syndrome.
We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, tracking peritonitis from a microscopic tissue insult all the way to the surgical bay. So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on as you walk on to your next shift. When a patient's abdomen goes suddenly, terrifyingly silent, will you know exactly what to listen for? Because recognizing the gravity of that silence might just be the exact thing that saves your next patient's life.